The stage lights were still warming up when the camera found him standing alone, shoes a size too big, shoulders squared like he was holding the weight of a promise. Before anyone heard his name, before the judges even looked up from their notes, there was a hush that felt different, like the room itself leaned forward. Somewhere in the crowd, a mother squeezed her hands together. Somewhere backstage, a boy swallowed fear and hope in the same breath. And right then, before a single note was sung, you could feel it. This wasn't just another audition. This was a moment waiting to happen. He was from the Philippines, a boy who grew up with the sound of old records spinning on borrowed players and radio stations crackling through the night. In his small home, Elvis Presley wasn't a distant legend, he was a companion. His songs played during dinners, during chores, during long evenings when the power flickered and dreams filled the gaps. The boy learned English not from textbooks, but from lyrics. He learned courage by singing softly at first, then louder, then in front of neighbors who smiled kindly and clapped with gentle pride. Singing was his language, his escape, and his promise to himself that life could be bigger than the street he grew up on. Ireland's Got Talent felt like another universe. The ceiling soared higher than anything he'd ever seen, and the stage lights made the air shimmer. The judges' table looked like a wall you had to climb with your heart. He could hear his pulse louder than the crowd. When the host asked what he would sing, he answered simply, Elvis. There was a flicker, curiosity, doubt, expectation. A boy, an old song, a giant stage. The odds felt unfair. The moment felt fragile. Then the music began. The first note came out steady, and something shifted. His voice wasn't trying to imitate Elvis, it was honoring him. There was warmth in it, and a quiet ache, the kind that comes from someone who has known both love and lack. As he sang, the boy closed his eyes, not to hide, but to remember. He remembered singing to the walls of his room, to his mother while she cooked, to himself when no one else was listening. The song carried those memories across the room, and suddenly the audience wasn't watching a performance, they were feeling a story. The judges leaned forward. One of them smiled without realizing it. Another blinked, surprised by the depth coming from someone so young. And then there was Simon Cowell, known for his sharp honesty, for being unmoved by anything less than extraordinary. At first, he watched quietly, arms folded, face unreadable. But as the chorus swelled, his posture changed. The lines around his eyes softened. The song didn't just reach him, it found him. Halfway through, the boy opened his eyes and looked out into the crowd. His hands trembled, just a little, but his voice grew stronger. This was the challenge he'd carried with him, to be brave enough to be seen. To sing not perfectly, but truthfully. And as the final notes climbed and held, something broke open in the room. People rose from their seats. Applause crashed like a wave before the song even ended. Silence followed, the kind that rings louder than noise. Simon stood. His eyes were wet, and he didn't hide it. That, he said, voice thick, is why this show exists. The boy's breath caught. He didn't fully understand what was happening yet. Then Simon pressed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti exploded from above, raining down like sunlight. The boy gasped, hands flying to his mouth, tears spilling before he could stop them. The crowd roared. His mother cried openly, hands shaking, disbelief and pride colliding in her chest. The judges smiled, clapped, stood together in a moment that felt bigger than television. But the story didn't end there, because it was never just about the buzzer. In the days that followed, the boy returned to a quiet room to practice, to prepare for the next stage. Doubt crept in. What if it was a one-time miracle? What if he couldn't live up to the moment? This was another challenge, learning that belief must be renewed every day. He called home, listened to familiar voices, remembered where he came from. He practiced not to impress, but to express. He sang to remind himself why he started. When he returned to the stage, he carried that lesson with him. Each performance grew more confident, more grounded. He stumbled once, then steadied himself. He listened to feedback, learned to breathe, learned to trust his voice. The judges didn't just critique, they encouraged. The audience didn't just cheer, they followed his journey. And through it all, the boy remained the same, polite, grateful, focused. He spoke about his dreams not with arrogance, but with intention. He wanted to help his family. He wanted to inspire kids back home who sang quietly in their rooms, wondering if their voices mattered. He wanted to prove that distance and doubt don't get to decide your future. The finale came like a sunrise. Bright, inevitable, terrifying. When he stepped onto the stage for the last time, he took a deep breath and smiled. This time, he wasn't alone. He carried every person who had believed in him, every late night, every small room filled with music. He sang with joy. He sang with gratitude. He sang like someone who had found his place. Whether he won or not felt almost irrelevant in that moment, because the real victory had already happened. A boy from the Philippines had crossed oceans with a song. He had reminded the world that talent doesn't ask for permission, it just needs a chance. As the lights dimmed and the applause echoed, the message lingered: your voice matters. Your story matters. And sometimes, all it takes is one brave moment to change everything. If this story moved you even a little, let it travel further. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear that dreams still come true. Because somewhere right now, another kid is singing quietly, waiting for their moment. The lights on the stage hadn't even fully brightened when something in the air changed. It wasn't applause, and it wasn't silence either. It was that rare pause where thousands of people stop scrolling, stop whispering, stop breathing for just a second, because they feel a moment coming. A small boy stood alone at the center of the stage, hands clasped tightly in front of him, eyes scanning a sea of unfamiliar faces. Before he sang a single note, before the judges said a word, his story had already begun pulling people in. And if you stay with this story until the end, you'll understand why some moments don't just entertain us, they change us. If stories like this touch your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because these are the stories that deserve to be shared. He came from the Philippines, from a narrow street where houses leaned into each other like old friends and music drifted through open windows. His childhood was filled with simple things: early mornings, shared meals, laughter mixed with struggle. His family didn't have much, but they had music. An old radio sat near the window, its sound crackling but faithful, and through it came voices from another time and place. Among them was Elvis Presley. To the boy, Elvis wasn't just a singer in his shiny suit. He was a voice that felt strong and comforting, a sound that made the world feel bigger than it was. As a little child, he didn't understand English well, but he understood emotion. He mimicked the sounds first, then the words. He sang quietly so he wouldn't bother the neighbors, then louder when his mother smiled and told him not to be shy. Music became his refuge. When school was hard, when money was tight, when the future felt uncertain, singing made sense of things. It gave him control over something in a world that often felt uncontrollable. The idea of performing on a huge international stage felt impossible at first. Ireland was far away, not just in distance but in imagination. But encouragement came slowly, from teachers who noticed his voice, from friends who shared his videos, from strangers online who left kind comments. Each small step built courage. Each what if slowly turned into why not. His family made sacrifices, time, energy, hope, so he could chase something that didn't come with guarantees. The day he traveled felt unreal. Airports, planes, new accents, colder air. Everything was different. Backstage at Ireland's Got Talent, he sat quietly, watching other performers rehearse. Some were older, more confident, louder. Doubt crept in. He wondered if he belonged there. He thought of home, of his room, of the radio by the window. He closed his eyes and reminded himself why he was there, not to compete, but to sing. When his name was called, his legs felt heavy. The stage lights were blinding, the audience endless. The judges sat before him, calm and powerful, their expressions unreadable. One of them asked why he chose this song. He answered honestly. Elvis was the music that raised him. Elvis was the reason he believed a boy with nothing but a voice could still dream. The music started softly. His first note floated out, careful but clear. There was no rush. No tricks. Just a voice carrying years of feeling. As he sang, his nerves melted into the melody. He wasn't performing anymore, he was remembering. The crowd felt it. Conversations stopped. Phones lowered. Something real was happening. Each line carried weight of nights spent practicing, of family sacrifices, of hope held together by faith. His voice cracked once, just slightly, not from weakness but from emotion. Instead of pulling away, he leaned into it. That honesty reached the judges. One smiled warmly. Another nodded, impressed. And Simon Cowell, known for his toughness, sat frozen, eyes fixed on the boy. As the song built, the boy grew taller somehow, stronger. He looked out into the audience, no longer afraid. He belonged here. When the final note rang out, it didn't fade, it hung in the air, echoing through the room and into people's hearts. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the applause erupted, loud and sudden, like a storm breaking. People stood without thinking. Tears were wiped away openly. The boy bowed his head, overwhelmed, trying to understand what he had just done. Simon stood up slowly. His voice, when he spoke, was emotional and raw. He talked about courage, about truth, about why moments like this matter. Then, without hesitation, he pressed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained down, filling the stage with light. The boy froze, eyes wide, hands shaking. Tears streamed down his face as reality crashed in. He had done it. Not just advanced, but touched something deeper. Somewhere in the audience, his family cried, hands over their mouths, pride bursting through fear. But success didn't erase challenges. After the celebration faded, pressure replaced it. Expectations grew heavier. People wanted more. Online comments came from everywhere: love, doubt, criticism. He had to learn quickly that being seen meant being judged. Some days, the fear returned. What if he couldn't live up to that moment? What if it was the best he would ever do? He worked harder than ever. Vocal training. Long rehearsals. Quiet nights thinking about responsibility not just to himself, but to everyone who believed in him. He learned that talent opens doors, but discipline keeps them open. He learned that confidence doesn't mean fear disappears, it means you sing anyway. Each new performance showed growth. He stumbled once during rehearsals and felt embarrassed, but instead of giving up, he laughed, corrected himself, and tried again. The judges noticed. They didn't just see a singer, they saw a young artist learning how to stand on his own. Between shows, he spoke about home, about children like him who felt invisible. He said he wanted to be proof that where you start doesn't decide where you end. His words were simple, but they carried truth. When the final episode arrived, the atmosphere was electric. The boy stepped onto the stage one last time, heart pounding but steady. He took a breath and smiled, not because he wasn't nervous, but because he was grateful. Grateful for the chance, for the journey, for the music that carried him here. He sang with joy this time. Not fear. Not desperation. Joy. Every note felt free. The audience responded instantly, clapping along, crying, cheering. Win or lose, he had already won something greater: belief. When the show ended and the lights dimmed, one thing was clear. A boy from the Philippines had crossed oceans with his voice and reminded the world that dreams don't belong to one place, one age, or one kind of person. They belong to anyone brave enough to hold on to them. And if you're watching this, remember, your story isn't too small. Your voice isn't too quiet. Someone, somewhere, is waiting to hear it. If this story inspired you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and keep believing, because the next golden moment could be yours.